NFL Inside Blitz, Week 17. Ted's got some good interviews this week. Let's throw it to him first. We're going to talk about the Miami New England game first, though, right?
Yeah, we got two games coming up on Sports USA, 9:30 in the morning Pacific time. Sunday is NFL Sunday warm-up, my pregame show. Miami at New England. Weather's supposed to be pretty decent, so that's not a factor. And then Minnesota at Green Bay, and the weather's going to be great there. 37 degrees is perfect this time of the year, so no problem. We will hear from Aaron Rodgers a little bit from now. In the meantime, big game for both Miami and New England. Still playoff bound, hopefully. Miami lost 4 straight after winning 5 in a row. But their whole story is about Tua Tagovailoa, of course, being out with a concussion again. It's a scary situation there. All the players are really concerned about him. And anybody who's seen him a couple of times, the first time when they said he didn't have a concussion, right? We're talking like week 3 or 4. And that's when he was wobbling all over the field. And it was scary just staring at the screen. And then the second time that officially he did get a concussion, you saw his fingers lock up and he was on the ground. It was just as scary in a different way. And so now he's hit again. Apparently, when his head went backwards and hit the field, it affected everything. And they didn't know it at the time. So there's a lot of controversy there. Why didn't you know it? This was in that he played the entire second half potentially with a concussion, and he threw 3 interceptions against Green Bay. So some weird stuff going on there. But from a football standpoint, Miami can clinch the playoffs with a win and a Jets loss or a tie and a couple of other scenarios. Meanwhile, New England clinches the playoffs by winning out. They must win the last 2 games, and so we'll see what happens there. But Teddy Bridgewater is in the spotlight. And you know what? Ron and I have talked about this several times over the years. He's pretty as solid as any backup in the league. This guy knows what he's doing. The guys love playing for him. So there's no real issue there, Ron.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of broke up, so I didn't hear all the things. I heard the part about Teddy Bridgewater, and he's been one of my favorites for a long, long time coming out of Louisville. He's at his peak, right before a serious injury at when he was playing with Minnesota, they had made the playoffs. They were thinking division championship and beyond. Then his career took a right turn. He's an accurate quarterback. He's more of a short range quarterback. His job is to find those speedy wide receivers in rhythm and have them still do the crossing routes. They're probably not going to change their offensive scheme. They'd like to be able to run the ball a little bit more to get that play action pass going. Any thoughts on Teddy Bridgewater, Chris?
I want to just interject that Colt McCoy will not be playing for Arizona, and Hopkins is looking like he may not go. He just left practice with a knee injury. So that is causing that line to move quite a bit because former Lion David Blow will be the quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. And I hate to punish you, but he blows. And,
you did punish us.
But as far as Teddy Bridgewater goes, he's very serviceable. He got knocked out of a game on the first play, I think, the last time that they were prepared to have him play. And he's going to be a little bit better at bringing the shorter range passing game into play for Miami, too. He doesn't make mistakes like Tua does. So I'm not sure how much of a downgrade it is, quite frankly, with the way Tua's been playing recently. So
yeah, I don't think it's a downgrade. Actually, I think it's just sort of a sideways thing. It's a little different look. But you're right. There's a mistake factor that's usually not there with Teddy, and that's a good thing for Miami.
Yeah, I think I would have put maybe a 1-point difference in this, which is virtually nothing, especially with the odds sitting below 3 anyway. So it's really going to come down to, like you said, turnovers. And it's going to come down to New England's making a lot of mistakes, more than we've seen in a long, long time. I know Matthew Slater is a special teams expert in terms of what he brings to the table and the teaching and everything else that he does for New England and special teams. But even their special team play hasn't been very good. They didn't cover, much less even win the game against Cincinnati, and they had a tremendous possibility to do that. Those missed extra points made them have to go for a touchdown at the end of the game. They got down to the 5, then they fumbled. They're just... This has been a 2-year exercise in not finishing red zone drives for New England. And Miami has played them tough at New England as well. So obviously a critical game for both teams. Yep. And whoever executes better on the big plays is going to win this one.
Yeah, Miami won in week 1 20-7, but that was 100 years ago. It really is a little different look, though, because New England's banged up in the secondary. They got the 2 cornerbacks are out, and you got to deal with Tyreek Hill. Good luck, guys. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
You have a couple comments on this game, right?
Comments?
Do I have
interviews?
Oh, interviews. Yeah, well, sure I do. Let's first hear from Miami running back Jeff Wilson, who the Dolphins were really great. They were not able to get us anybody specifically for the week. And out of the blue, we got a call 5 minutes before Aaron Rodgers called in. They said, "We're in the locker room. Would you like Jeff Wilson?" We're standing right at his locker. So that was really nice. And he was great. You know, he's got 3 touchdowns this year, tied for the most from running back situation. One of the guys who came over from San Francisco that had to be with Mike McDaniel, you know, the former 49er assistant coach. So that's worked out really, really well with Mostert. So let's hear from Jeff Wilson. Jeff, it's Ted in Los Angeles. Thanks for coming on real quick.
No problem.
Absolutely. So what's the feeling in the room right now, and your thoughts on Tua's situation, because that's a real tough spot there?
My heart and my prayers go out to him. You know what I mean? Obviously, you know, that's a very sticky situation, and people seen what happened early on in the year with him, and to hit that again, you know, that can be scary, not only for him, but his family. So we just send prayers up every day. It's definitely a tragedy and devastated because he's a good, genuine person. And some people just really don't deserve certain stuff, and I just really feel like you don't deserve to go through that. You know what I mean? So yeah. My hat goes out to him, prayers goes out to him, and the one we know it's all love, man, and we love him, and we always gonna be behind him. So, but the locker room, man, the atmosphere, everybody ready to go. You know what I mean? We know how bad he want to be out there as well, especially on the offensive side. So we feel like it's our duty to, keep this thing going for him. You know what I mean? Help his spirits as well. So we locked in and we're ready to go.
All right, and I'm sure Teddy's ready to go because he's always ready.
Come on, man. You know, Teddy, everybody knows Teddy. Teddy is ready. He's been around this league on all sides of it, from the good and the bad. So everybody rally behind Teddy. You know, he's a great person, great guy, a great leader. You know what I mean? He's going to step in. He's going to do a great job. He's already taken command. You know, everybody looks up to him. He's well respected in the locker room. So everybody's ready to rally behind him.
We're with Dolphins running back Jeff Wilson. And how do you explain the ups and downs of the last couple of months? It's almost hard to believe you guys have lost 4 straight after you would look like you were dominant for a while.
Yeah. We're still dominant. You know, nothing has changed in that aspect of our game and who we are. You know what I mean? It ain't like we going into games and getting beat by 20, 30 points or just being outplayed. You know, if you go look at the tape and check it out, half of the reasons or most of the reason we lost is because self-inflicted wounds. So, and at this time of the season, you know what I mean? That's what separates you from being a playoff team or a team that sit on the couch, you know, and watch. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we know what we have to do. We know we have to hone into a time ticket. So it's time out for, next time, or, we did that. It's time to put it together, and it's time to go to work, and that's what we're ready to do.
And last thing, you guys are in a great spot to make the playoffs, and that's all that matters. Got to get in the dance.
Oh, man, we ain't even worried about the playoffs. We just got done with practice. We're worried about coming in tomorrow morning, getting this film, and taking this thing a day at a time until we get to New England and keep on walking it like that.
You're going to be a hell of a coach there, Jeff. I love that response.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate the time, man. All the best. Happy holidays and stay healthy, all right?
All right. You too, boss. Have a blessed one.
Now, how's that for Jeff Wilson? Just somebody handed him the phone, talk to this idiot in L.A., and get your 2-minute interview out of the way. He is really great. I enjoyed speaking. I think we spoke before when he was with San Francisco one time. He's all business, and that's what Miami needs to be this week. All business, big time. And I just want to mention that Greg said, how do I handle an instant interview like that? That's my job. I'm supposed to do that. What can I tell you? Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it was a great interview. It actually annoyed me because I like the New England side in this, and I didn't like to hear them. I didn't like to hear him so focused on just the game ahead and getting down to film and worried about the preparation and being so high spirited and stuff. But I'll live with my Patriots.
That's the word, Chris, that I had thought of too when I was listening, and that was focus. He was certainly focused there. I don't believe he played last week. I didn't check that completely. But his yards per carry, strong in San Francisco, strong in Miami so far. His fellow partner there, Mostart, he came over from San Francisco as well, yards per carry plus. So between the two of them, it's elevated Miami's run offense greatly because there was no run offense before those two guys. And I really think we talked about turnovers and stuff, but again, setting up the play action pass is so important. And if Miami can do that, they're capable of winning this game.
Yeah.
You had a few questions with Matthew Slater also.
Yeah, exactly. And Matthew Slater, I go back with him. He's 15 years in the league now and former UCLA guy. We joked at the start about him being listed as a wide receiver since college, and he has caught one pass in 15 years. And we had a lot of fun with that at the start. So let's check that out. Ed in Los Angeles, good to chat with you again, sir.
Ed, thanks for having me. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great, thanks. And it's a little rainy here today. That's unusual around here.
Oh, I know it is.
Yeah, I'm sure your family's told you what's going on. Hey, I got to ask you, Matthew, this has been driving me crazy. As far as I know, you have been listed as a wide receiver for 15 seasons in New England, and you've only caught the one pass. Everybody knows about that, and that was 11 years ago. 46 yards in your season opener that season. Don't you think it's a little strange you're still listed as a receiver?
I guess they have to list me as something. So, people ask me that all the time, and it's
I'm not the first.
I give a lot of thought to. It's just kind of like, hey, I'm still listed as a receiver, but and there was a time that I was practicing receiver and getting in the game occasionally, but I'm very comfortable in my role now, and so appreciative of Coach for letting me thrive in that role for all these years.
So who decides what you're listed under all these years? Did anybody ever ask, or is it just automatic? You just, okay, WR next to your name.
No one ever asked, but I would assume that Coach Belichick is responsible for that. I'm sure that's his decision.
So it makes you, like the 9th string receiver or something?
Yeah, maybe 10th. Maybe 10th string.
and I also got to ask you, how is it possible you have one career catch on 8 targets? Where did the other 7 go?
Well, they were all, when I was a young gun, I could run with the best of them, and they were all bombs. So we're attempting to throw bombs.
Oh, okay.
Go balls, posts, everything.
So Brady
like
couldn't
that.
put one of them on target, huh?
Yeah, we at least got one to say that it actually worked.
Oh, that's so hilarious. I love that. You ever get in Tom's? Yes.
He sounded pretty high-spirited there.
Yeah, obviously there was a lot more to that interview, and we don't have the time today, unfortunately. But I can tell you that this is, by the way, a future Hall of Famer, almost a lock. And his dad's a Hall of Famer. And they have 17 Pro Bowls between them. So
Jesus.
It's the most ever for a father-son combination. And he has 10 himself. This is a guy that's just an incredible special teamer. And one of the questions I asked him about, what the heck's going on with your special teams in New England, right? And he said it's just been total execution. And if you remember the late John McKay, who with his his winless Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they asked him about execution. He said he was in favor of it. Just get rid of all these guys. So pretty much the same with the New England special teams, Ron.
Did you end up
that's
playing
kind of the
Ron?
question. Yeah, that's kind of the question I wanted to ask you, whether or not you got a chance to ask that, and whether or not I see him. I thought I would see him with the young guys, because he's obviously been there so long, as a mentor on special teams. Did you get a chance to talk about that?
Yes, we did, and we'll send you the interview so you can listen to it. Hey, by the way, it will be the entire interview will be posted at Sports USA Live on Twitter this weekend. So you want to check that out. It was more fun stuff with him. We talked about, how Brady couldn't connect with him. Brady would be working at 7-Eleven if he was 1 for 8 his whole career with everybody else, obviously. Bottom line is, this is a special teamer, and very likely this will be his last home game after 15 years in Foxborough this week. Otherwise, because he's probably not coming back next year. This is a New England team that needs to put it together. There's some question marks on offense with Mac Jones and the issues in the locker room and who's in charge of the offense and all that kind of stuff. They don't have a lot of playmakers. They just have to make things happen. And I think they can do it, but Chris loves them this week for whatever reason.
Well, I was listening to Greg Cosell, and he had some interesting observations on Jones. And he said the strange thing about him is that he's missing some easy reads, and then he's making some very brilliant reads. So he can't figure it out. But there's some good stuff and some bad stuff with him. On the last note on this game, Ron, are you sitting this one on the sidelines? Do you have an opinion on this game?
I don't have an opinion yet. I've obviously been concentrating so much on the college bowls. I only picked out 3 or 4 games. This spread looked relatively online to me. I am curious, are there 1 or 2 reasons you want to share as to why Miami is the side that you think is the right side?
I'm primarily going with my metrics and recent performance. Miami's, basically been playing over the last 5 weeks, 27th in the league. They rate near the bottom defensively for the entire season. Let me see if I can see where I have that. Miami's dead last, number 32 in defense on my rankings. And again, I don't want to be repetitive, but I said it 5 weeks ago, said it 4 weeks ago, said it 3 weeks ago. This Miami team has been, very good to me, just betting against them. They've got a lot of flash to them, and they're hard to bet against because they, when just last week you see them play Green Bay and they're explosive. I mean, geez, they can get in that end zone in no time. The speed they have on that team is just amazing. But New England's got a solid defense, and New England can do some things against that team. And the fact that they don't have to face the mobile Tua is going to benefit New England, because mobile quarterbacks hurt New England more than not. And Bridgewater's basically going to be a statue back there. So it's primarily metrics. I have Miami or New England as the better team, and I like the form. As mediocre as New England has been, they're still not playing that bad and that poorly over recent weeks.
No, but they've lost 5 of the last 6, and that ain't good.
A lot of tough beats there, though.
I know.
They showed up to all those games. You got to remember.
But you know what? They have found another thing I asked Slater about, by the way, that if you'll check it out at Sports USA Live on Sunday when we post it. Really interesting response to, being the old veteran. He's standing on the sidelines watching him blow that game in Vegas. And I said, so what's going through your mind where you're watching your team throw the win away, and they'd be in a whole different spot right now if they had that W? Again, no guarantees they're going to win in overtime, but at least they had a shot, not just hand them a win out of the blue. That was just the stupidest play ever.
Well,
this would have been a play-in game if they would have won that.
Exactly.
Everybody else would have been done, and winner wins. And Belichick, for whatever it's worth, I didn't say too much about it, but it would be good for Chris's side with same season revenge. And they do have that because they lost to Miami opening week. He's been exceptional other than 2021. he's been exceptional in that role in terms of covering the spread. If they cover the spread, obviously they win, they tighten up the division.
Right.
But this will be an interesting game.
And and they both control their own playoff destiny. So that makes it interesting. Also, New England still can win and get in.
Yeah.
The next game, very interesting. Minnesota and Green Bay. Who thought that this game looked like it was going to be a hunk of crap? 5-6 weeks ago, and all of a sudden Green Bay's in the hunt and is primed to make a playoff spot if they can win out.
Yeah, they still need some things to happen. As you'll hear from Aaron Rodgers here in a minute, that he's become a Cleveland Browns fan for the weekend, hoping that they take care of the Washington club, and they need to. So, look, the Packers have put themselves in a hole, and they're just slowly crawling out, and you got to give them credit for doing it. They've won 3 in a row. The matchup in this game, to me, Minnesota with the 5th best pass offense against Green Bay's number 1 pass defense. How's that matchup going to be for this entire ball game? And weather will not be a factor. It's supposed to be about 37 degrees. That's a beautiful day in Green Bay for this time of the year. Kirk Cousins, Minnesota is already division champion, but they're a game behind Philadelphia for the number 1 seed. Unlikely. They got to win out. Philly's got to lose both games, so that's probably not going to happen. But Minnesota dominated in week 1 in this game, in this matchup, 23-7. But that was 100 years ago. I mean, it's just, you can't even almost look at that game. 2 different teams right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. A lot of rookies for Green Bay at that time that they hope have matured in terms of that. Yeah, the weather is pretty good. I looked that up too. So it's a very interesting dynamic as far as that goes.
Yeah, and Christian Watson is questionable with a hip injury. So I don't know where he stands today in his practice situation, but the bottom line, they could really use him because he has come on beautifully for them.
Well, I have an opinion on this game, but why don't we run with your Aaron Rodgers interview first?
Absolutely. Well, I go way back with Aaron Rodgers this is the 17th year we've been doing this when he was a backup to Brett Favre, ran into him, and there's a story in my book, Touching Greatness, about how we first got together in the locker room by accident when he was listening. He was a Dodgers fan at the time, and I didn't know it. We were the Dodgers station. That was many, many moons ago. Let's hear from Rodgers. L.A., how are you?
Hey, Ted. How's the weather out there?
You know what? It's a little pissy today, to be honest.
Good. Need a little rain out there.
We need a lot of rain. You have a big yard over your place?
Well, I got the ocean out back. So
I know that.
The ocean's pretty big.
Yeah, you don't need any water there.
Yeah.
Anyway, good talking to you, sir.
Yeah, you
Thanks
too.
for coming on. Appreciate it. So, Aaron, what's up with your knee, by the way? Is everything good?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Okay. Is that
something that... There's a little fluid from the game, but it's feeling better.
Oh, good. So how much are you embracing this playoff run challenge any different than in the past? You seem to have a different calm about you than the RELAX year.
I mean, look, it's much better when you're in this position and you've wrapped up a playoff spot and you're playing for seeding or you got some sort of light game coming up because maybe it doesn't matter where you're at. That's kind of been the standard for the last, few years. We've been the top seed the last couple of years. This is a lot different. We haven't been in this position, in a while. 2016, we had to win we won our last 6. We had to win, obviously, our last couple to get in.
Yeah.
And we played Minnesota and Detroit and Chicago, all 3 in the last 3 that year that got us in. And then, obviously, 2013, I came back in the finale Week 17 with Randall Cobb, and we had to win to get in and did that. So we've done it before, but would much rather be in a position where we had something locked up.
Yeah, you're definitely a Cleveland Browns fan this week.
Yeah, go Browns, baby.
So how have you seen the growth of the kids in that receivers room, and how much have they impacted your offense, especially during this late run here?
Yeah, it's been a big part of it. Christian Watson coming to life in the Dallas game has got us going, and then, the last, 6 games for him. He's been very productive for us. Got banged up in the Miami game, so not sure what his status will be, but his emergence has been really big for us. And then we've had a number of guys hurt. Romeo missed significant time. Randall missed 4 weeks. Sammy, when he was with us, was out for a while. So we've been lucky to have those guys all back last week, which was nice. It's been a big part of it. The consistency that we've gotten from Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon has been a big part of it. And then us just kind of settling in up front a little more with Zach Tom, playing pretty solid when he stepped in. And then the other guys, Elton really settling into his natural left guard and playing really consistent football the last 5 or 6 weeks. And John Runyon, his consistency all year has been fantastic. And Yash, playing next to each other, they've settled in nicely up front, and that's been a part of our success on offense.
What about the kids, though? Their route running seemed to be improved. Does that change your aggressiveness in trying to get the ball in the air a little more than just grinding it out like you were most of the season?
Well, you know that they're going to improve throughout the year. Young players, usually have the opportunity to do that. There's the rookie wall that shows up for a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's such a long year. These guys come from training at their, finishing the season at their schools, training at their place of where they're working out, getting ready for a pro day and the combine and the draft, and then right to a new team for most of them, and you're training through the summer, and then you get into a season. You're playing, 3 preseason games and 17 regular season games. It's a long season, so that's why you got to be patient with these guys, kind of getting through the doldrums of the mid-season and the ups and downs and confidence, and just looking for that consistency and approach and focus and preparation. Those guys have done a pretty nice job. You got to stay on them.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. It's the fun part to see these guys grow into their personalities and start to make some plays. And when Christian took off in the Dallas game, that was really a cool moment just to watch kind of the trajectory of his career take a right angle turn and really jump up into being a big-time playmaker for us. And he's been obviously a big part of our success on offense the last 6 weeks.
We are with Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers. How about Mercedes? What a play that was. I love that 31-yard connection last week. Was that a design play or a total improv?
That was an improv for sure. He's not really in the progression on that play.
Yeah.
Sometimes how it goes with getting the ball to Big Dog. Don't really call a lot of plays for him, but every now and then you might find him on the backside for whatever reason because maybe nobody thought he was going to be a part of that pass play. But loved seeing him catch that ball over the shoulder. Obviously, catching a touchdown on 4th and goal from the 2 was a big play for us as well. He does so much more for us than shows up on the stat sheet every week, but every time we get a chance to throw him the ball, it's a pretty fun thing for everybody. Everybody just loves him. I mean, he speaks for us for the team. He's a great motivational guy. He's really inspirational, the way he plays, the way he shows up as a professional, and he is an invaluable asset to our football team.
Yeah,
and I just love the guy. He's a special teammate.
Yeah, I love him too. I've dealt with him since his days at UCLA. Really a great guy.
A couple more Bears.
Gotcha. Vikings, a league record 11-0 in one-score games. How do you process that while going up against the defense that's been pretty vulnerable against the pass this year?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It is pretty wild to look at that stat. Obviously, Kirk's played really well down the stretch in those games. They got a lot of playmakers on offense. They're obviously never out of it. They're coming back from 33 down. It was pretty incredible. That's how you end up having a really good year, is by winning those close games. Obviously never been done before, winning that many. They've won a bunch in the last play of the game, long field goals and great drives to finish it off. Sometimes when you got a dynamic team, dynamic offense, you're going to give up some yards and some points. Especially when you're kind of playing from the lead or playing from behind at times. It just depends on how teams are going to attack you. That front's obviously been really good against the run. Got some real stout guys inside, 3 big space eaters, and then obviously 2 great pass rushers on the edge. But I think any team is susceptible to getting hit on passes if you can protect them. Now, that's the big key. There was a stretch there where both Z and Hunter weren't getting a bunch of sacks.
Yeah.
But you look at their stats now; they're both over double digits. They're obviously factors, and you got to be aware of where they're at because they'll not only be on the outside, but they'll move inside and rush really effectively from a 3-tech or over the center position. So it starts with protecting those guys in the front, and then if you can hold up, you got to take some shots down the field.
Last thing, Aaron, you couldn't ask for more. You're facing two division rivals, both dome teams playing at Lambeau this time of the year. Balmy mid-30s, right?
Yeah, we were hoping for like 15, at least. I mean, maybe I was.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it being colder the better, but yeah, they're a dome team. I don't know if they're practicing outside this week. I'm sure they might get out a little bit, but the weather in the field has been an advantage for us over the years. It's always nice when you get gets under 20, then it starts to affect people a little bit more. But it'll be a warm January game for us, and great opponent, great rivalry against Minnesota, and we know what's at stake for us. They got obviously a lot to play for too, trying to play for the seeding in the NFC, and expect a 60-minute game and then some probably.
Yeah, it should be a hell of an atmosphere. I appreciate the time as always, Guy. All the best. And, hey, we've been doing this 17 years now, and you live in my backyard. When are we doing lunch in Malibu?
I look forward to that, Ted. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, good luck with that. he better be paying if that ever happens. Hey, you know what? He's unbelievable because most quarterbacks, A, wouldn't do this interview, and B, when you speak to Aaron Rodgers, he is thorough. He sounds like a guy who's been reading up on the game, on the teams, if I did that interview with Kirk Cousins, and nothing against Kirk Cousins, he sounds like a great guy. He would give me nothing, zero. And Aaron basically broke it down like a coach. So, that's pretty impressive stuff when he opens up like that.
I was going to ask who that was because, as Greg mentioned, you could sense an entirely different interview than what we see when he's on other shows or in other forums. He's so relaxed, it's scary. And
yeah, I put people to sleep though. That's part of the problem, that.
But he seems to be very aware of much more than you would think that he would be aware of, and.
Actually, I will disagree with that because I watch his interviews very often, his weekly Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever days they do them. And he's pretty much like this with the what they call the gangbang situation, all the guys huddling around his locker. So that's pretty much the way he is. But one-on-ones, not always. It depends. Everybody's got their different moods too. But he really opens up like very few others do. And whether you like him or not, he's a polarizing guy in all different aspects. You can't doubt how he's able to give you what you need when you need it from a one-on-one standpoint.
He's very honest with his player assessments.
Yep.
He's very analytical. You guys hit all the other touch points. But for the audience that's listening now and will be listening when Chris posts it later, Ted, I've only known you like 50 some years.
70, but who's counting?
Yeah, it's just exceptional the way you ask the questions and phrase the questions. And it brings a lot out of the trust in the people you interview, including Aaron Rodgers. And
thank you.
It's just fascinating to get at that stuff because those the questions, the line of questions, the way he talked about the pass rushers and so on, it was well, I knew that about you anyway, but the audience should know it anyway.
Oh, thanks. Well, you know what? I felt I learned something too, because it's the way he phrases things and tells you, hey, you know what? They got two edge rushers that are a big effect on this game and who's blocking and who's doing what. And, how many guys would tell you he went over almost every single O lineman, and what they're doing and what they're not doing. It's like, come on, we broke down the entire team in 5 minutes. It's unbelievable.
He sounds so patient and easygoing in that interview, and you see him flying off in tirades on the field at his players. It's an interesting dichotomy. For me, I like the under in this game, and I know a lot of people like the over in this game. But as you referenced earlier, there's good defense involved in this game. Green Bay's pretty good against the pass, other than against Miami, I guess. and I just see it's the second divisional game. The game matters. I don't think it's going to be a freewheeling, free-spirited game. I think it's going to be a little bit more deliberate. Both of these teams are coming off of chaotic games the week before. Minnesota's off a chaotic game every week, it seems. So I just see that I think they're going to have a tougher time getting over the number than other people in the marketplace think.
I may disagree a little bit on that, although I do understand second divisional games tend to go lower scoring, especially when something is on the line. Green Bay December games, for whatever reason, have historically been well over 60% overs over the years. So it's very interesting what happens in December in Green Bay. Maybe it's because totals are put a little bit low because they worry about the weather, yet Green Bay's so used to it. Wind's not a factor, so I don't see that as a problem here. Obviously, these teams do know each other. The 3.5 is interesting, even though I set it at 3.5, and I think the line is correct, despite the fact that Minnesota has the far better record, power rating wise, that line is correct. But there's still something about the hook that makes me think, I'm not laying 3.5 because I just don't want to lose by 3 on some sort of close game or overtime win or something like that. Minnesota's had 8 days before they have to play this game. I'm not sure that's necessarily a big factor, but it's nice to know in terms of that. But otherwise, I would think that Green Bay is the right side, but not at 3.5. I just play the hook.
Yeah, by the way, the one stat that really stands out to me, I don't think a lot of people know about. Everybody knows about the 11-0 in the one-score games, but the Vikings are a +5 point differential. 5 for a 12-win team. That's the first time in the history of the league. That is unbelievable. You got to have, I wish I was that lucky because I would be on a private island and I would have bought them already from a lotto. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. Next year's Pythagorean theorem will have Minnesota as a play against team, but that's for next year.
Oh, yeah, big time.
I wanted to talk, I guess we're done with this game also, so I'd like to transition. I want to talk briefly on look-ahead lines. This is driving me nuts. And tell me what you think, Ron. I've listened to show after show after show referencing the look-ahead line on the Tampa Bay Carolina game. And a lot of smart people, a lot of good stuff, a lot of good points. And my personal opinion is I don't really pay attention too much to the look-ahead lines because I've got my hands full dealing with the current week and what's going on with the current week. And there's a lot of variables that can happen after these teams have played a game. A lot of injuries, a lot of things change. So it's a little difficult to really put any time into a look-ahead line. And a lot of other people feel the same way. And it obviously is an inefficient market, lower limits, lower focus. Yet every show is talking about look-ahead lines, and not a single person in the Carolina-Atlanta game. They kept on saying, well, the look-ahead line was 7. The look-ahead line was 7. You can't go all the way down to 3. Why does not a single one of those people factor in something that was really important? Carolina was not supposed to win last week, and they were supposed to be out of the playoffs. They were supposed to not have any hope. That makes a big difference in a line. That explains a significant part of the line moving from the 7 to a lower number. That's probably the most significant part of that move, aside from anything else, and not a single person ever brings it up. So, what are your thoughts on the look-ahead lines, Ron? Am I being too picky, or do you think that that's a significant difference, that the fact that Carolina has something to play for?
Well, it's a combination of things. I think those 7 was too high based on my power numbers. And yeah. I mean, when you look, it was like why I played the Dallas-Tennessee line and why I talked about that last week is because they didn't adjust for changing of quarterbacks for the next week. So you got a soft line in the look-ahead line. With the Tampa Carolina, obviously you're right. If Carolina doesn't win the game, we're not having this discussion and people aren't going to say, wow, and so on. But there was some value in that particular look ahead line because the power ratings wouldn't have supported Tampa being -7 because Tampa wasn't playing that well to warrant a 7. And Tampa's getting by only because, they played Arizona. Arizona leads by 10, but it's Arizona and Cliff Kingsbury. So Tampa still has a chance against 25 other teams. Tampa's lost that particular game. I think it's a reflection on the 3 is a reflection on Tampa Bay actually not being that much better than Carolina. And according to my power ratings, the 3 is correct. So I don't really have the time either to look at a lot of look-ahead lines. I only take a cursory glance to see if my power ratings say, hey, why is that line a certain way? Or if there's some injury data I want to use that I might get an edge. But I'm not playing. I think that'll be a to-do list for me next year. Maybe play a few more look-ahead lines. I've had success with them. But I don't see the value when looking at every look-ahead line that's coming up next week and going through it with a fine-tooth comb. I just think you look at it, you pick out 3 or 4, you investigate it, and you go with that.
Yeah, I that's pretty much what I do. I take a cursory look at it, and unless I see something that really looks nuts, I don't want to get involved in it. There's just too many variables. And plus, I don't want to move the market either. And that's what a lot of other people feel in the situation. But it's just kind of surprising that so many people feel it's so important in their handicap, because there is a lot of people speak about a look-ahead line as if it was efficient or that it was like a real number. I mean, yeah, it's a real number that you can bet, but it hasn't been molded and bet into shape. And a lot of stuff can happen over the course of a week. So just my 2 cents on the look-ahead lines. Ron, you said you wanted to talk about something to do with quarterbacks.
Yeah, what a league this is right now. If you look back at week 1, the starting quarterbacks that were there for week 1, half of them are not starting this week. Half of them not starting due to either injury, most of them, or 1 or 2 due to inefficiency. And 2 or 3 lost their jobs, like Carson Wentz in the middle of the year, and now he's starting again. So we're counting him as if he started in week 1 and week 7 and this week 17. Literally, there have been quarterback shuffles between almost 20 of the 32 teams have had some sort of quarterback shuffle due to injury or ineffectiveness. We're going to have another few quarterbacks being drafted next year. We're going to have the quarterback shuffle in terms of how many of these guys, Wentz included, or some of these other guys that are going to be changing residencies. Maybe even Tom Brady goes to another team from what I've heard. Teddy Bridgewater moves on an audition this week. Mike White, J.Wilson may move on. It's just crazy with the quarterback carousel. Now, I bring that up as just a point of fact, but I have another question for both Ted, for you, and for Chris. When quarterbacks get shuffled in and out, how do you factor that in terms of preparation time, consistency, and so on? Shouldn't there be some negative regression in terms of quarterbacks getting yanked in and out of the lineup?
I think it depends on the situation, which guy has been around for a while. If he was a previous number 1 guy, he probably doesn't need as much prep work. If you're talking one of the kids, he's still learning on the job. That is a different factor and a negative factor to me. A guy like, for example, a weird one is Gardner Minshew, right? Yeah, I mean, he's been around a while, but he doesn't play very much. So when he does play, is it rust, or how many snaps has he gotten with the number 1 team in that week and that kind of thing? The confidence that the team has in him. So there's so many different factors. It really depends on the guy. But I think a lot of the young guys, and we've all ripped J.Wilson in so many ways, and he's deserved it. And he's deserved it from a personal standpoint, because he's had this sort of ho-hum, hey, his famous line, none of this was my fault. I mean, that's just a stupid thing to say, and you lose your locker room in about 5 minutes that way. So if he comes back, The question is, how hard are they playing? Well, they got to play hard. It's all their jobs. There's some weird emotional issues there that come into play from like an offensive standpoint. But to me, so many kids are forced to play before they're ready. Like Malik Willis, he is so far from ready from playing. He should be watching for 3 years. He should never take a snap. And he did, and it was like, you know what? This last night they wanted no part of him. He's the second string quarterback, and nope, he's not playing this game. We're bringing in another guy who's from this neighborhood. He was there for 8 days. Was Joshua Dobbs, right?
Yeah.
That's all because it was obvious Willis is not ready to play.
That's well said. Chris, what do you think?
Well, I was distracted because the Jacksonville line moved down to 3 while you guys were talking. So I took +4 and I took -3.
Wow, you're amazing.
Multitasking.
I thought I would take my shot on that one. I haven't noticed whether they've made any announcements, though, on what exactly is moving that line. But just playing the market there. If you see a market move and you can catch a slow-moving shop on a line, and you already know it's at a different location, that's great value. Anytime I can get a -3 or a +4 in the NFL, I'm going to do that.
Well, I'm impressed because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So good for you.
Well, I can't do that either. So you don't just have to pay attention and look for the little red lights on the line.
I got you.
And I see our comments say Lawrence is now questionable. Ron guaranteed on Tuesday that he was going to play at least one half as hard as he possibly could. So we'll see whether Ron.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be like a week 3 preseason game myself, where he'd play like 1.5 quarters and get the hell out. And if he doesn't play, it doesn't matter. It means 0 this game. If he's got a little something nagging him, sit him out. Doesn't mean a damn thing.
Ron, prop us up.
Not too much in the prop market because in the games that we covered, there are relatively 0 props out. I am getting interested a little with the weather and Aaron Rodgers throwing more than 1.5 TD passes. It's -115. If you look at any other year except for 2022, if you saw Rodgers 1.5 -115, you would have thought the world would have ended because his numbers would be 2, 2.5, and so on and so forth. Now you have a relatively soft defense in Minnesota. You have Aaron Rodgers having more trust in his wide receivers. You have a relatively summer day for Green Bay this time of year. I just think it's a little bit lower priced than it should be. And just because he hasn't thrown that many in recent weeks, it's circumstantial based. And I think this is a time where he could throw more than the 1.5. But that's all I have because that's not something that's been out there. They're very cautious with the props right now. And maybe part of that is because of the 16 quarterbacks that are here.
Yeah, probably
here in week 1.
Yeah. And by the way, we already mentioned it. The one negative on the Rodgers thing there is Christian Watson. If he doesn't play, that changes it a little bit for me because that's the guy who opens things up for that offense right now. And if he doesn't play at all, then you can't be looking for Mercedes Lewis to be open very often.
Another good point. Yeah, I would agree with that. There would be some caution if he didn't play because even if they don't target him, somebody fast has to run with him.
Yep.
So that's good.
Ron, what are your thoughts on this Cleveland-Washington game? Because nobody that has their sanity that watches NFL thinks Watson is playing well at all. Cleveland's out of the playoffs. Washington has everything to play for. And yet Washington isn't even a field goal favorite. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
Yeah, a little bit of a fishy line there. I have conflict in terms of both of these areas. Washington has historically chewed up money as a home favorite. It's been almost automatic to go against them as a home favorite. But Cleveland's sitting in a couple of good spots as well, according to my metrics. The line on the game actually is a bit high, according to my numbers.
Wow.
Which is strange because I didn't expect to see that. It's one of those things I'm just going through. I didn't have a lot of time, so I'm just looking at these numbers and I'm saying, wait a second. I have Washington a 0.5 point higher a half point lower than Cleveland on the overall season power ratings. I don't know how that meshes with your numbers, Chris, because if you look at the trailing five, obviously Cleveland's offense with Watson has been pitiful.
Yeah.
So
I wonder, you have a great memory, Ron. And the fact that Washington has had a bad history as a home favorite, but I wonder what their history is like as a home favorite under a field goal. I wonder if that makes a difference.
I generally don't parse it out
No, I know that.
unless it's 7 or more. So because the sample size would be way too low to do that. Yeah, and even over several years, Washington in the last 10 years, they've only been a home favorite about half the time because their team has been mediocre.
Right.
So you're not getting a lot of numbers. But in general, if you take the dog, generally those things work at 3 or more. So I understand that. I'd much rather have Cleveland at 3 or more. Otherwise, it's almost more value to take the money line.
Yeah, as it was pointed out, Cleveland actually over the last 5 weeks is doing pretty well, and it's coming on the defensive side. And as Russell says in the comments, that's kind of coming up against some teams that have not performed that well offensively generally. So, good point there. Washington has been average over the last 5 weeks, just a hair below average. I think 17th. Cleveland actually is 5th somehow over the trailing 5 weeks, probably because of those defensive numbers, primarily because of those defensive numbers, because it's certainly not offensive.
Yeah, speaking of somehow, I got to drop in a little note on the New York Football Giants. We've been talking about how they've been in a downward spiral. They've won one of their last 6 games. If they win this week, they're in the playoffs. How the hell does that happen? Right? Mm-hmm. What does that say about the NFC right now?
Well, we talked about that at the beginning of the year. The NFC East potentially could have had the entire division in the playoffs because they had the weakest schedule. They played a bunch of nobodies. They played the 2 weakest divisions in the NFL. So they get a lot of easy wins that way.
Yeah, but it's not that you can't say they're easy wins with Dallas and Philadelphia, though. Those are not easy wins. That's 3 of the 4 teams. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I will say this, just transitioning a little bit. Give up road teams. Their last road game of the season are horrible plays. And so just Indianapolis and Denver fall into that. And I wanted to do anything and everything I could to play against those 2 teams because they're done. Denver's on whatever quarterback and so on, and Indianapolis doesn't know what they're doing, both coaching wise on the field and so on. The Giants opened, I don't know if it was a natural 3. Chris could do that. I ended up laying the Giants 3 minus 120 in that particular game. My number showed that it should be 3.5 or 4, so there wasn't too much value. But my situations favored the New York Giants. There's like 3 situations that favored the New York Giants and nothing favored Indianapolis. And so I much rather wanted to go with the team that wasn't giving up versus the team that had given up. So I don't think Indy is a good play, and the line has since then moved up. It stayed for a long, long time at the 3 minus 120.
So you're expecting no professionalism from them this week in showing up against the Giants?
I expect them to show up.
Yeah.
You know what? They love Jeff Saturday. They're just not very good. And that's part of the problem. I mean, Jeff Saturday's not an NFL head coach, but they love the guy and the owner loves the guy. And Saturday on a Sunday is not a good combination right now. It was a stupid move in the first place. And he might be back next year, by the way. I don't think so, but we're talking about a crazy owner. That wouldn't shock me in the least. But that team's going to show up. I don't think they're just going to drop dead there.
Well, their running game, they don't have Jonathan Taylor.
Exactly.
Nick Foles generally doesn't stretch the field. The Giants have, the personnel isn't great, but the Giants are going to blitz. That's the defensive coordinator's DNA. And they played somehow fundamentally sound defense because they have a much better coaching staff than they did the year before. They're going to run Barkley left, right, and center against Indianapolis. This has the makings to me of something like a 20-9 game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, we did hear the announcement that Jackson was going to be doubtful, and it just came across that he is definitely out. Do you have anything going on in that game at this point now that game's under a field goal run?
That game is just 1916 written all over it because that's Baltimore and Pittsburgh. That's just what they do. And this Jackson situation is just like last year. Speaking of memory, last 5 weeks of the year, he was out. And every week he was, well, maybe he'll come back. Well, maybe he'll come back. And then he didn't come back. And now we're talking, can he be fresh for the playoffs? So on and so forth. I know they need the game, but this is Pittsburgh and Baltimore. This is just knockdown, drag out madness with those two teams. And to me, series history and the way they play each other is more important than anything else when you're handicapping that particular matchup. The only thing I have here is that I would much rather take the points. If I got 3, I would take 3 in Pittsburgh. If I do not get 3, I won't touch the game.
Yeah, and remember, Pittsburgh still needs the game. They have a lotto's chance of getting into the playoffs. And
Same
at the
as
same
last year.
yeah, and at the same time, they want to get a winning record for their head coach, right? Mike Tomlin. He's never had a losing season. That's a pride factor deal there. But hey, they're not eliminated yet. They might be by then. I'm not sure. There's so many factors in that Pittsburgh thing. 1,000 things have to go right for them.
Well, it all boils down to that one statement that everybody is sick and tired of hearing about, and that is Tomlin has never had a losing season. So they may want to be playing for that part of their goals also.
Yes.
Yeah.
A game with Huntley starting as quarterback hasn't had more than 30 points scored the entire season. And you got a total that's 5.5, 6 points higher than that. I agree with Russell in the comments. You got to kind of look under. I haven't bet it, but I do like the Baltimore side on this. And it has absolutely nothing to do with my desperation for Baltimore to somehow win this week and next week and still win the division.
Okay. Well, it's possible. T.J. Watt, when he's been in the lineup, Tomlin not only has a winning record, but he has like a 67% record or so on. It's just they missed all those games, and sometimes they were just. That's the value of T.J. Watt. I mean, you think how much is a defensive player worth? Well, he's one of the ones that's worth something because they probably would be playing for a playoff berth if he was healthy all year.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The Jets Seahawks game looks pretty interesting. Yeah, what do you think about that one, Ron? Because I think I followed the Jets. I've been very high on the Jets all season long. I've advocated for them. I've lost with them. I've won with them. I just think that they're overvalued in this situation, laying points on the road against Seattle.
Yeah, this was my intriguing game of the week, too, because not only is it important for both teams, whether or not they make the playoffs, they may not, even if whoever wins this game, but the fact that they're still in it at this time, they're playing for something. It's a really intriguing game. I took the money line at plus 125 when it first came out, figuring I was going to have some enormous wiggle room because I made Seattle the favorite in that game. I don't know if that'll come to fruition, but I've done a little bit of homework on the game since then, and I'm not as crazy about the Seattle side. So I'm probably just going to fool around with that game more than anything. The Jets have a couple of good indicators. Maybe that's why the line was set in their favor. I do not think they should be the favorite based on power numbers, but I could see why the Jets would be a little bit live in this game because my indicators and my metrics say that the Jets have at least a 50% chance of winning the game.
Yeah, I have one indicator that I've mentioned a few times this year. When you are 3-4 at home and Seattle is supposed to have one of the best home field advantages in the league, you're not a very good team. Okay. You're good enough to be in the mix, but you're not that good. And that bothers me a lot about that team.
Well, we brought that up several times that, lazy handicappers had been referring to the 12th man and this monster home field advantage. Last year, I was pointing it out to people that if you look back, it's been years since they were, a difficult team to go play against in
It's true.
Seattle.
I saw a report that the 12th man is he's in a coma.
Yeah.
So
he got COVID. But I have the Jets number 32 over the last 5 weeks. They're not trending very well. Obviously, they played some difficult games. They've had to deal with the Wilson situation. They probably might have even wanted Russell Wilson instead. I don't know. But I think those two Wilsons are interchangeable after last week. Last game, Buffalo, Cincinnati. Thoughts?
Great game. Absolutely wonderful matchup. Perfect night game all by itself should be. I can't wait for that game. I really want to see what Joe Burrow's got to offer in this baby. I'm glad the weather's supposed to be decent and actually better than decent. I think I read that it's like 60 degrees or something for that game. I don't know how the hell that is. But it's what a matchup, late season matchup, and the game means something for both teams from a seeding standpoint.
It's a fascinating game. I have a great indicator for both teams, so that bothers me because there's nothing there. But I do have an indicator that projects an over in the game. So with the weather being decent, that would be interesting. That this game could come down to who has the ball last, because Joe Burrow has been absolutely fantastic, and Cincinnati's defense has played well too. But Buffalo's tough to stop too. They score a lot of points. Big game Monday night. Not Cincinnati's best situation. When we talked about Cincinnati and how difficult the schedule was, think to week 6. Game 16 and 17. This is one of the setups as to why I thought Baltimore would be better than Cincinnati, not talent-wise. But here they have to play on Monday night against the presumed best team in the NFL. And then they have a short week after a long season to play a divisional game at the end of the year. So the odds were stacked against Cincinnati, but they've been really beating the odds over the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. So hats off to them. I think it's fascinating that they were able to come back from last year and put on this kind of performance this year. And I think it's going to be a fascinating game. But my strong lean and possible play would be on the overs.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of issues in regards to this game. The Bills are the only team, I love this stat, the only team in the league with a 100-plus rush yards in every game this season, and they have a lousy rushing offense. It's all Josh Allen. Think about that. That's insane.
And a so-so offensive line.
Yeah, and speaking of offensive lines, that's what we've got to look at for Cincinnati moving forward, too. They've had their issues, and they lost Lyle Collins last week, and he's done for the year, and they're mixing and matching now. And this is the first game all season long that the O-line for Cincinnati is not intact. And that's not something that Joe Burrow is too thrilled about, I guarantee you.
All right, Ron, I got a quiz for you here and I haven't heard anybody mention this.
Okay.
And I may be wrong here. Take a look at this chart.
Okay.
I'm trying.
And tell me, if Baltimore loses during the day, what do the Bengals have to play for?
The Baltimore plays Sunday night, so they don't have a day game.
Well, they played the day before. But if Baltimore loses, why do the Bengals have to play?
Still in line for number 1 seed overall.
Yeah, exactly.
And the
But
bye.
Kansas City will have already won.
If that happens, then they just have to figure out whether or not they value the number 2 ahead of Buffalo. I mean, it's 2-3. Do you want to play Cincinnati? Does Cincinnati want to play at Buffalo or host? I think it's a Monday night standalone game. They're going to play hard no matter what.
What's the difference? The Chiefs and as it stands now, the Chiefs and the Bengals will get first round home games. And then the Bengals would have a second round home game if they won too, correct?
Correct.
I don't understand what the big deal, the difference is between the 2 and the 3. Do you know the difference?
The difference is Cincinnati would have to go to Buffalo or Buffalo would have to go to Cincy.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference to me.
Yeah, me too. It's huge.
But not if Buffalo is the number 1 seed.
Well, if the number 1 seed,
Well, if they lose this game, Kansas City will leapfrog them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
they won't be the number 1 seed if Kansas City wins and Buffalo loses.
I don't know.
But I'll give you a different situation there. If Philly wins, what does Minnesota have to play for, the game that you're covering?
Absolutely nothing.
I mean, that's something that we didn't take into account when we spoke earlier, and I forgot to mention. If Philly wins and locks up the number 1 overall seed, I think Minnesota drops their motivation level just a little, although it is Aaron Rodgers and it is Green Bay.
It's a rivalry.
And that's why you got the 3.5. That's why I'm comfortable maybe laying the 3. I'm still not going to lay the 3.5 regardless, but it's an interesting dynamic if Philly wins before the Minnesota Green Bay game.
Are there 3s out there? Or I thought it was only 3.5.
Yeah, only 3.5 that I saw.
No, there's 3s everywhere painted.
Oh,
painted,
it is? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, 120, 125, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Just a thought there.
No, I mean, it's always this time of the year, the morning game could affect the afternoon games big time. No doubt.
That's about all I got. Do either of you two have any other things?
Well, I think the last thing I'm thinking of is the toilet bowl game for the NFC South, Tampa Bay and Carolina. That game means a lot. Everybody's saying we don't want to play Tom Brady in the playoffs, and he'd have a home game, at least one anyway. But boy, they just don't look good at all. They are totally out of sync. And if Carolina pulls this off, how about Steve Wilkes? I mean, here's a guy nobody's mentioning him, and they're 5-5 with him, and that's not great, but they're not great, and they're in the mix, and good for them.
I had to sit through that Monday night game and watch Tampa Bay. They've covered 1 game out of an 11.
It's awful.
2 of their victories are painfully lucky victories.
Really
this
bad.
Tampa Bay team is not a good team. The only thing you can say about Tampa Bay is that Brady is mounted some nice fourth quarter comebacks or overtime wins.
Yep.
And but they shouldn't be in those positions against the teams that they're doing it against. So
Yep.
I don't know how impressive it really is when you think about it. And you look at the way Carolina played Detroit last week, they busted their ass with game film. They had a game plan mapped out that was just knocked Detroit on their butt.
One of the most unheralded stats of the year. They had 2 100-yard rushers at halftime against the Lions.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It really goes to show that there is some, very good coaching going on there. And Darnold is actually is number 1 in some quarterback metrics since he's returned. And when you compare the coaching that they have in Tampa Bay, that guy's making mistakes more than Dan Campbell makes mistakes. I mean, he's not an asset to that organization. I don't know how they keep him. So I believe Carolina is very live in this game, and we're going to have to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Carolina, it's almost a not so fast. Their defenses certainly can handle Tampa Bay. This is a tough game to handicap. I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina won. But one of the reasons that they've been winning is because they've asked Darnold to do nothing. He has thrown 0 interceptions, which is completely unlike historically what he's done. He's thrown 20 passes per game, sometimes less than that. So you have to be careful. If they were in a situation where they were down by 7 or more points,
you're in trouble.
That would be a problem.
Yeah, he's got to be Sam the gunslinger. He's got to go back to that, and that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's a defensive-minded coach to begin with, and Steve Wilkes as the interim. So, I love the job that he's doing. I don't think he should be the coach of the future, but the coach of the present, absolutely. He's got them right. They're doing fantastic. Would I love them to lose this particular game? Yeah, because of a couple of futures that I have there. But But other than that, Carolina did a wonderful job for me somehow getting over the 5 alternate line and 5.5. I thought it was completely dead, and then it came back to life. And we all know how at the beginning of the year, Chris and I were just getting to be all in on Tampa under the 11.5, because the more you looked at it, the more that was the most ridiculous number that could be posted with all their changes.
Gronk, who? Whatever happened to Gronk? Right. Hey, by
what
the
a
way,
big red zone difference.
Oh, huge. And by the way, big number in this game to look at that stands out to me like a sign on the Vegas Strip. The Panthers are 1-5 on the road this year. 1-5.
What happened in the first time these teams met?
I don't remember. I think that was very early.
I believe Carolina beat them.
Yeah, weren't they like a 13-point underdog that actually beat Tampa Bay already once?
Well, they wouldn't have been a 13-point dog at home.
They were. Well, that was right after they got rid of McCaffrey.
Exactly, 13 points.
They were
13 points, 21-3. Tampa lost 21-3.
Okay, so it was that weekend that they played after McCaffrey left?
Yep.
Oh, wow, good memory. Very good memory.
Brady had no TDs, no interceptions in the game.
Wow. Maybe there's a matchup situation here then, too. You know, they just they don't match up with them, maybe.
Well, Tampa Bay's had its problems with
absolutely.
the New Orleans overtime. And, at least it's a good sign. I mean, obviously, Tampa probably came in not prepared properly and kind of thought that the white flag had been waved. We all thought the white flag was waved for Carolina when they dumped McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And they actually rushed for more yards since he's been gone. So.
Shows you what running means in the NFL.
Right. Exactly. By the way, and that's why I give a lot of credit to Wilkes. You know, whether he's a guy for the long haul, for them to not just pack it in and say, you know what, the team gave up on us, we're going to give up, and they play hard for the guy.
Baltimore, what's the weather for the game? Sunday night.
I think it's supposed to be decent.
Russell says under for field goals, and I would agree. This is a field goal type game. If you get decent weather and low winds, if you can find an over 3 field goals, or certainly you'll get an over 3.5 with plus 130 or whatever field goals, it might be interesting.
Well, it's going to be partly cloudy at night and 50 degrees.
That's fine.
Wow. That's warm by their standards.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, so. Yeah. It's everywhere is pretty darn warm.
Yeah, compared to last week, what a difference.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I think that just about does it for us, right? So
all right, sounds good.
We'll be back on Tuesday with Ron and I, and next Friday we'll figure out what we're going to do also. So we appreciate everybody joining. And again, if we haven't answered your questions or comments in YouTube, I apologize. It's we're all pulling our hair out, keeping up with the college bowl games and NFL. It's tough, and then Ron partying and vacationing every day. So.
Absolutely.
I wish we had the names of the games for you next week. Of course, we don't because of the flexing. We have no idea what our Sports USA doubleheader would be. But I promise you, we will have a happy new year. Couple of interviews for you, whatever teams they are. And everybody stay safe and be good.
We'll see you guys next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Happy New Year.
See ya.